teachers, my name is Kim Moore. I'm Elementary Social Studies and English Language Arts Curriculum Coordinator. I'm super excited to get to spend some time with you and just share a little bit more about Lucy Calkin's Reading Units of Study and how those lessons within this resource are going to be so great for you and your teams to tap into, because they're truly going to help support your readers, and you're going to see tremendous growth from them from the time that you start your unit to the time that you end. And so today we're going to talk not only about the reading units of study, but a little bit about how you utilize that resource in planning. We know that within our workshop, we have a small amount of time that we have to teach, because our students they have a short period of time that they can really hold the attention of what it is that you're communicating and teaching to them. They're going to be making the greatest gains as readers when they are interacting with text or when you're supporting them in small group work. And so with that being said, we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump right in. This summer, our summer curriculum writers did some phenomenal work with creating genre rubrics to help support our readers and our writers. And so today, I ask that you guys take a look with me at the 4th grade expository reading rubric. And so this rubric was designed with the intentions of cross-checking what our state standards are for 4th grade with an expository text. And then they were designed to present a way in which we think about that progression for learning within those standards. And so if you're looking at the first page, you'll notice that a standard for 4th grade is the context of a sentence to determine the meaning of unfamiliar words or multiple meaning words. And so as you look across that page from left to right, you see the progression for students until they meet proficiency at that practitioner level. And then as you move on, you'll see that students are also expected to make inferences about text and to use text evidence to support their understanding. This is a very important skill that our students need to be secure in, especially when they're interacting with nonfiction text, because drawing conclusions is something that that does require them to think beyond the text. It's not something that's explicitly stated, but that they're having to take what they know about a certain topic, but also apply what was written in the text and come up with some ideas of their own about a topic. And so there's the rubric for that one. We move into talking about summarizing informational text, maintaining meaning and logical order. Another important skill when students are interacting with nonfiction text. And lastly, making connections between literary and informational text with similar ideas and provide text evidence. So we know that making connections is an extremely important skill that our students are doing when interacting with text. I did say that was the last one, but that wasn't. There's 2 more, one being, what we notice about nonfiction text is that authors are really strategic in the way in which they structure the information and present the information. And so text structures being one very important thing that we want our students to notice when they're interacting with text. And then the last one being text features. So we know that this style of writing and nonfiction text is filled with great text features that all provide us with so much great information. And so it's important for our students in 4th grade to use these text features to gain an overview of what the topic is going to be, and also to help them locate information. So that was an example of the 4th grade reading expository rubric. How I encourage you guys to utilize this rubric when planning for instruction is this ultimately is what we deem. These are our standards on the far left column. And so this is what we're saying, that as they move through this progression of a novice to an apprentice to a practitioner, those behaviors in the practitioner level is what we should be looking for and be able to say, if they have mastered all of these things, then they are showing proficiency of that standard. So You know, this rubric could be utilized in a number of different ways. I think it's great for helping kind of drive your instruction for where you want to go, because if we're saying this is what we hope to see within our students when they're interacting with nonfiction text, then this is what I should be teaching them that they should do. Also, when you're helping them set goals as readers, you know, it's always great for them to be thinking about and working on something as a reader. And so these behaviors within this rubric are great to also help set goals with students. And then lastly, those are things that also should be addressed when you're individually conferring with readers, and then also when you're doing small group strategy work. So hopefully that is helpful for you all. Like I said, these expository rubrics, they're available in fiction and in nonfiction for all grade levels K-5. So if you go into the collaborative planning section in GPS and search by your grade level and just type into the tag a rubric, those will all pull up for you. Okay. We are going to go ahead and move into talking about how Lucy Calkins, her reading units of study are going to be exceptionally beneficial to you guys as you are planning for your instruction. So I want to go ahead and start off by showing you kindergarten's book from within her units of study. It's called Becoming Avid Readers. And we know in kindergarten that their expectations for nonfiction reading is they have to be able to identify topics and details with the help and support of students or teachers, retell important facts, and then think about how authors are grouping information. And what's great about this resource is in Bend 3, the way in which Lucy Calkins organizes her lessons is by bends, and Bend 2 is all about learning from all about books. So in kindergarten, she has 6 sessions that perfectly align with your standards in kindergarten that I suggest possibly starting off your unit of study with. That might be helpful in kind of kickstarting how students are thinking and interacting with nonfiction text at that level. In first grade, your book is Learning About the World. And this is from Lucy Calkins' Units of Study for Teaching Reading. And this is Unit 2. And in first grade, really the main difference is there's exposure in kindergarten to using the titles and the illustrations in nonfiction text to make predictions. But in second grade, you're really going deeper with looking more intentionally about all of the different text features that the author uses to present information. So that may be, you know, graphics with captions. In her unit of study in first grade, Learning About the World, Bends 1 through 3 are all really, really great. So in first grade, she starts off by talking about getting smart on nonfiction topics. And then she moves into Bend 2, tackling super hard words. So like thinking about, you know, when we come across words that we don't necessarily know, we don't give up, but we use strategies to get through that tough reading work that we do in nonfiction. And then in Bend 3, she moves into talking about reading aloud like experts. And she gives some more suggestions about how when we read aloud, it helps us practice and learn more and kind of think like a reader. And so that would be extremely beneficial for first grade to be using, Learning About the World. In second grade, her Unit 2 book is about becoming an expert when reading nonfiction. And so the shift from first grade is now that students have thought a little bit more about that these types of texts have a main idea and are supported with facts and details. What's most important here is that in second grade, students are expected to identify what the main idea is and really distinguish it from the topic. And so in this bend within this book, it's all about reading across the topic in Bend 3. And in Bend 2, it's learning the lingo of a topic. So Bend 2 and Bend 3 would be so great in helping students know that, when we read nonfiction text, there is a difference between a topic like the weather and then a main idea. So that would be my recommendation for second grade. For third grade, I don't have the text, but what would be helpful is in Unit 2 book. It's called Reading to Learn. And within there, she talks a little bit more about how students are reading, before reading nonfiction, some smart things that readers do to kind of get them ready to engage and interact with the text. So it's like previewing, thinking about what you see on the cover, and then what do I think I'm going to learn about in this book. And what we know in third grade is that the student expectation is for them to be able to identify the details and facts that support the main idea, and draw conclusions from the facts. But what separates third grade from second grade that they haven't had yet exposure to is that in third grade, they have to be able to identify the cause and effect relationships among ideas presented in the text. And so that is a new skill that in her units of study, she really goes deeply into talking about and moving into how authors strategically structure the way in which they present information to really help readers soak in that information and ingrain in their brains. And so as we move into fourth grade, the fourth grade book that Lucy has in her units of study is Reading the Weather and Reading the World. And this is where I'm going to be modeling a micro lesson for you from this book and this resource. But all of her bends within here are really great. However, in Bend 2 and 3, she goes into talking about how now that we know a little bit more about what readers do really well when reading nonfiction, she goes into launching a whole class research project and how you're investigators when you're reading nonfiction text because you're absorbing all this information. So it might be safe to kind of hold off on that until you get into your research unit, but you can absolutely dabble in that if you want. My recommendation for fourth grade would be to start with Bend 1, which is learning about text. And she really goes in deep about talking about how you read and learn with intensity when you're reading and interacting with nonfiction text. That's going to be the lesson that I'm going to model for you guys today. And then she moves on into learn from nonfiction. Readers get their mental arms wrapped around the text. So she has some really great language that she uses within her lessons that really just help our readers better understand the intense work and thinking that goes into reading nonfiction text and how that kind of differs from the way in which we interact when we're reading a story or a fiction book. And then in fifth grade, the book that she has in her fifth grade units of study for teaching reading is her Unit 2 book, and it's Tackling Complexity. And so this is moving up levels of nonfiction. So you're basically building on what they've learned in fourth grade and thinking about more, you're just being more sophisticated as a reader when you're interacting with text. And so you're doing a lot of things like summarizing the main idea to help support the details and facts in the text. And you're doing a lot of synthesizing and making logical connections between ideas within text and really diving in deep with using text features just to gain an overview of the text. So those are her units of study that I recommend getting into first in your individual grade levels. And if you guys are ready, I'm ready to model a lesson for you. So I'm going to be modeling a lesson from Lucy Calkins' fourth grade units of study for teaching reading. This is from her Unit 2 book, Reading the Weather and Reading the World. And like I mentioned, I would start for fourth grade with Bend 1. And when I think about how Lucy designs her lessons, she does a great job of thinking about the starting point and where they've left off in the previous grade level. So in this lesson, it's all about teaching students that nonfiction readers make a commitment to learning from the text, and they also think and make connections about what it is that they're reading. And so what I encourage you guys, as you are using this resource to plan your mini lessons, oftentimes teachers tend to shy away from using this resource because her lessons are very lengthy. However, I do encourage you that when you are looking through her lessons, I am not necessarily going to follow this as a script. You will notice that the lesson that I'm going to model for you guys today, I've read through it, and the highlighted parts are basically what I'm going to say. And so there's a lot to say in here, but I'm not going to verbatim read this as if it were a script, because that's not what Lucy intended when she designed these lessons, was for it to be any way a script. Because what we know is we have our students' attention for about 10 minutes, and then after that, they're not really absorbing what we have to say. And so we have to make it really precise and to the point. So with that being said, I'm going to model this lesson for you all, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. You're going to be my guinea pig, so play along with me as you are my readers in my classroom. Readers. Today, we're going to work on a different style of reading that really launches us into a new unit of study. And when I think about the types of reading that we've done so far this year, you guys have been working really, really hard to think about the type of reading that you're doing when you're interacting with fiction text. And then those stories that have really great characters. But today, we're going to launch into a new unit, and this time we're focusing on nonfiction reading. So I want you to think for a minute, what sorts of nonfiction texts already fill my life? Where's a place that we keep a lot of things that we take to and from school? I know, our backpacks. Okay, so at this time, you might pull out an example of a backpack. I'm going to do some voiceover coaching as I'm going through this lesson. So you pull out the backpack. Oh, wait. That's right. Our backpacks are full and filled with great information. Do you mind if I use one of your backpacks as an example? Okay. As I look through this backpack, I see a math workbook. Might there be some nonfiction writing in it? There is. Look, I see word problems, and I see directions for even how to solve them or what to do. That is an example of reading nonfiction. You're exactly right. How about searching through your clothes? Oh, I see. On my clothes, or on the bottom of my shoes, there's a tag. Oh yeah, labels. Labels are also a part of nonfiction reading. You're exactly right. So you know what, readers? Readers look at all types of nonfiction reading each and every day. It's everywhere. When we're driving down the street and we see signs that tell us where to go, that's nonfiction reading. So today I want to teach you that as you get older, you don't just read more nonfiction, you also read nonfiction differently. It's almost like grown-up type reading. And grown-up nonfiction writers, they make a commitment to learning from a text by making connections between what they know and what they care about that topic. So, I encourage you, and I want you to think about this for a minute. How many of you guys have ever been to the dentist office? Yeah. Is that a place that you like to go? No. Well, did you know that there's two different types of ways that students interact and read nonfiction text? One way I like to call waiting for the dentist. It may look something like this. What did you notice? Yeah, I was leaned back in my chair, I crossed one leg over the other, and I just began kind of flipping through the book. How many of you have ever done that type of nonfiction reading before? Yeah, I read that way a lot too. I read junk mail that way. But I don't want to read like that when I'm reading nonfiction book. I want to read and commit to the learning that I'm going to do when I engage and interact with text. I want my reading work to look really different. I'm going to make a commitment to myself that when I read nonfiction text, that I want to be really intentional about thinking about the author's words and the information that he puts into the book. Okay, I'm going to model what that may look like. I have this book and it's called Everything Weather. So before we dig into this new read aloud book, let's try to make connections to it. What do we already know and care about that connects us to this topic, weather? Take a minute and think. Are some of you guys thinking about ways in which the weather has affected your plans? Yeah, like you had a baseball game last weekend, but you didn't get to play because it got rained out. Or when you went and had a vacation, but you didn't get to fly out because it was horrible weather. Or even school days. We don't get many of those in Texas, but all around the nation, sometimes school gets canceled because of bad weather. So, what did you notice that when I looked at the cover, I see a very broad topic, right? Now, what I want to do is I want us to commit to what do we think we're going to learn about in this text? Everything weather. This topic I think sounds really interesting. I think I'm going to commit to really making a connection, something that I think is going to be really interesting that I'm going to do and think about as I'm reading this text. Okay, so to read nonfiction well, I must commit to the text. I need to make a connection to what it is that I'm going to read. So think about what I already know about that topic and what do I care about that topic? Well, I do know that there's a lot of different types of weather. And what I care about is how weather affects people. I wonder if that's in the book. I'm going to flip to the table of contents. What's the weather? Ooh, weather predictions. Yeah, different types of weather. So I want you guys to help me try this. I'm going to get out my book box now. And within my book box, I have lots of different types of books. So what's important is that I grab something that I think I can make a commitment to. Wow. Okay, look what I found, readers. I found a book on hurricanes and tornadoes. You know what I heard you just say? I remember that it's important as a reader to make a connection to your text. So as I look at this title, Hurricanes and Tornadoes, I'm going to think to myself, what about hurricanes and tornadoes? I know that they do cause a lot of damage and they often devastate people's lives. I'm wondering if I'll read more about that. Let me see. I'm going to flip to the table of contents and see if this is something that might be something I want to read about. Wow. As I look at this table of contents, it's filled with information. As I look down the page, I see hailstorms. Devastation on page 30. This is definitely a text that I want to stay committed to, and I want to learn more about the devastation that these terrible storms cause people. So readers, today, when you guys go back to your seats and you start thinking about reading independently and engaging and interacting with your nonfiction text, I want you to think about the books that you have in your book box. Are you really committed to those books? Are those books that are really topics of interest to you, that you can make a connection with and you are really truly interested in learning more about? Because that's the first step in reading, is finding something that you want to be committed to and that you have a really strong connection to. And if you don't have a connection to it, then maybe you should turn it and substitute it for another book. So I'm expecting that today you're going to go back in your seats and you're going to look through the books that are in your book box and pull out the ones that are nonfiction, the ones that provide you with more information, and ask yourselves, is this a book that really matters to me? Is this the book that I can make a connection to, that I will hopefully learn more information about? If so, I want to keep it in my book box. If not, I may want to turn it into the library and find a different book. Okay, so you send them off, and that's the end. That was the lesson in summary. And so basically what you're going to do from here on within this session is, within this bend, I hit session 1 today, which was reading and learning with intensity. And so the way in which we read and learn with intensity is we make connections to our text. And so tomorrow I'm going to go into look at session 2, and I'm going to teach them that, which is to learn from nonfiction, readers get their arms around their text. And so that's where our second piece on our anchor chart comes in. So we're going to preview the whole text and predict how it might go. So all along the way, we're building the capacity of our readers to think about, when we read nonfiction well, we do these things. And so we're at the end of the week, we're hopefully going to have this anchor chart that reminds us that when we're reading nonfiction, we should be doing these things. So I hope this was helpful information to you all. If you have questions all along the way as you are planning with this resource, with your Up the Ladder units of study, I would be so grateful to come out and visit with you and your teams if you're backwards planning and you're pacing out your unit, and how this resource can help support you all. I hope you guys have a wonderful time teaching this unit. It is so super fun, and kids really do enjoy reading nonfiction text. So I wish you all the best, good luck, and holler at me if you have any questions.